All right. Hello, everyone. It's 12:05 Eastern, and I think we're going to begin. Welcome to our webinar, 2017, Looking Ahead. I'm very excited about this presentation. As they say, it's beginning to look like Christmas. And as for many of us, it's time to celebrate 2016 and begin the year of 2017. Many organizations are planning their marketing analytics budgets for 2017. Organizations are determining what the KPIs, what the objectives should be for digital marketing. And so we decided to organize this webinar to discuss what should 2017 look like. And in this webinar, we'll talk about some of the upcoming trends that we find interesting. Now, before we go further, just a couple of items, few logistics. There is a chat panel, so please, if you have any questions, let me know. This webinar is being recorded, and we are going to share the recordings with everyone. And if, again, anything comes up at any point, please ask us. And throughout this webinar, we're going to answer any questions as they come in. We also have a Q&A section towards the end of the presentation. I'm excited to lead this webinar with Adam Singer. Adam is analytics advocate at Google, digital marketing industry speaker, and a former consultant. I met Adam a number of times and heard him speak probably close to a dozen times. And I always love his presentations, and not just because of the amazing content that he shares with us, but because of how passionate he is and the amount of insights that he shares. This is myself, Michael Loban. I work for InfoTrust. InfoTrust is a digital analytics consulting and technology company with offices in US and around the world. And we are one of the largest Google Analytics certified partners. So we'll also talk about some of our experiences in the space of digital analytics and what we see as areas that organizations should be considering of growth for 2017. At any point, feel free to tweet at us. This is my Twitter handle at Michael Loban, and again, this is Adam's Twitter handle at Adam Singer. So if you prefer Twitter, we are monitoring both accounts. So if any questions that you want to share on Twitter, please post them, and we will also try to get to them. So before we actually start sharing predictions for 2017, I wanted to begin with a quick retrospective. And I decided to ask Adam just a few questions, what's on his mind. So Adam, from your perspective, are there any 2016 predictions or predictions that we made at the beginning of the year that you feel did not actualize?
Yeah, so thanks for the intro, Michael. And I think the same prediction every year that we hear from bloggers, at industry conferences, from analysts, that every company is going to really just become this amazingly sophisticated, data-driven organization. And while there are some companies there, it's at the beginning of every year we see this is the big year for data transformation. And I think that's wrong. I think that there is iteration and progress being made every year, and the overall sophistication increases, but it's not like we're going to snap our fingers and 2016 or 2017 is going to be the year where every company staffs up appropriately and every company, you know, has the right team, the exact right team in place, and we have as many data scientists as we need. You know, I think it's happening slowly over time, and we'll get there, but I don't think it's something that we snap our fingers and happen, and that's okay, right?
One of the things that you mentioned, Adam, was the level of sophistication. And I wanted to ask maybe a follow-up question about that. Obviously, in a consulting world, we always hear the question, you know, tell us what the best in the industry is, right? Share with us what others are doing so we can do it better. How do we measure or at least understand what that level of sophistication is? Do we have some kind of baseline of where the organization maybe should be or how it should be comparing itself against what's maybe what the standard is?
Yeah, I don't know that it's always a good thing to look outside of your own company. For in terms of understanding your own sophistication, I think it's good to benchmark against yourself. Where it is helpful to look at what other organizations do and get case studies and whatnot is maybe just some inspiration, right, to help out specific areas like testing and optimization or like data integrations. Like look at what other companies are doing to sort of inspire you. But in terms of your own sophistication, every company is unique. Your own teams are unique. So I would measure against yourself.
Okay, so as long as you're better today than you were yesterday, so it's a good start.
Yeah, it is. Getting more sophisticated at digital marketing is binary. Things are either getting better or getting worse. So hopefully they're getting better.
Wonderful. So those are the things maybe that did not quite actualize in the 2016. But what are some of the trends that you are hoping might carry over into 2017? Things that you feel like organizations are starting doing and should continue definitely doing next year.
Yeah, one trend that I have seen and I think will continue next year, and this is a good thing for everyone on the call, is budgets are finally increasing. We're increasing headcount. There is understanding and buy-in for building out the right analytics and analyst teams. And so I think that's a great trend, and that's something where we're certainly all going to be able to grow our teams, get awesome new tools. Now, the thing is we want to just be sure that as we do increase budgets, we're showing the value. And that way, people don't treat it as, oh, this didn't work one year. We're managing expectations out, and we're showing how starting to adopt the data-driven practice is going to make the company a lot more money. And I think that's something good analysts are doing organically anyway. So that is one good area. I think we're all going to see better budgets.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, for many organizations, an idea that there is more coming their way for their marketing or analytics department is definitely great news. And what about any aha moments? Maybe things that surprised you this year. Maybe it was a good surprise, or maybe on the other hand, it was something that you totally unexpected and wasn't really anything pleasant from the business standpoint of the world.
Um, I think that one thing that's been kind of cool to me is seeing areas of Marcom and areas of the business using analytics that weren't before. And so a good example of that is the PR organizations are actually starting to use data and working really closely with content teams and working a lot closer with testing and optimization teams. So I think one thing that surprised me is the fact that we're seeing cross-functional working collaboration in areas that were previously these big silos. And so that's been a nice surprise.
Perfect. And another follow-up question, were there any technologies or tools that you have seen this year that you feel really blossomed into something that you enjoy using in everyday life, or maybe that you really see organizations are capitalizing on?
Yeah, so hopefully our launch of Google Data Studio is kind of my favorite tool of the year. Data Studio, if you haven't seen it, is Google's free data visualization product um, that lets you bring in and ingest any data sources you want and build awesome dashboards. So that's been sort of my favorite tool.
And another question, when it comes to analytics, where do you feel people get stuck?
I think a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis. And so, this is something we understand at Google. Google Analytics can be daunting for new users. And so we'll talk about ways to solve this as we get through our presentation. But I think sometimes there's just so much data now that companies have access to that, new analysts can be overwhelmed. That's understanding. So once we dive into our slides, hopefully we can help that out.
Sounds good. Well, let's do that.
Yeah.
So the agenda for today and the areas that we want to cover when it comes to 2017 and what to plan for in our eyes is one, reporting and data visualization, so just like what Adam mentioned. Then we'll talk about integration of different data sources. So as we get more budgets, as we get more systems, so we begin to advertise across more channels to reach our audiences. And we often find ourselves that organizations have data that exists across 2, 3, 4, or maybe 15 different platforms, right? An average enterprise website has between 50 to 75 pixels or beacons that are deployed on a website. And hopefully they're deployed through a tag management system, but obviously all of these technologies are collecting various types of information. And so the question is, how do we bridge these often disjointed systems, and how do we bring the data together so it becomes easier to analyze, and we look at the full picture instead of a very fragmented information. Then we'll dive into more efficient analysis and hopefully how to escape the feeling of analysis paralysis when you have the data but you are not quite able to make the right decision. And lastly, we're going to touch on bridging the talent gap. So a few minutes ago, Adam mentioned that budgets are increasing, and immediately there's almost a feeling of celebration. Finally, our work is going to be recognized. We're going to get more money. But what's interesting, or the downside, if you will, as organizations get more money, they begin to recruit, they begin to hire, but is marketplace ready, right? Are there enough people for us to hire? And many organizations are showcasing that there is actually a shortage of talent. So we'll talk about how to train people internally and how to address that gap that will continue to increase over the next few years. So with that, let's dive into reporting and data visualization.
Awesome. So I'm going to take this section, and this is one of my favorite topics from a measurement perspective, and it's really important for marketers. And the reason is data visualization can be this last mile effort, right? You conduct your marketing campaign, you get all these great results, and then you feel like the work is done, but really it isn't. The last mile effort is to visualize our data really well for our teams and for our different stakeholders. So, thinking about this, just creating dashboards and say sending an automated PDF export out of Google Analytics and sending it to 20 people on your team is a really bad practice. And the reason is different people are interested in different data. So, who are the end users of your data viz efforts? Think about this before you create your visualization plan, and think about how they plan to use reports. How often people are going to use them? Do they need them monthly, quarterly? Different people want different usage, and so giving people the desired cadence of reports is important, so you never have someone freaking out and asking you for a report at the last minute. So going forward, there's a lot of different personas, and these are the people you really want to think about. You have some people are just interested in information. We have executives, right? They just want high-level stuff. We have our analyst teams. Those are the ones who can handle, more detailed reports, and they want to go through pages of data, right? And then, of course, our fellow report designers. And so when you're thinking about these different personas, remember their expertise. And this is always a good thing to think about when you're creating dashboards is, are they going to be able to handle more in-depth content? Or like an exec, execs just want, of course, revenue, leads generated, right? They're not interested in, page views and bounce rate of a website. Whereas our analyst team, likely is, and our marketing team wants to see how specific campaigns did. So really think about these things when you're creating your reports, and I think you'll find people actually do dive into their reports. Next slide. And so we sort of just talked about this. I think when you're thinking about the personas we just went through on the last slide, you can be thinking, what types of dashboards are they interested in? We talked about executives. Operational dashboards are interesting. Are you giving, for example, your web team a performance dashboard for your site, looking at how fast pages are loading? Is your mobile site up to speed? Is it should you be using accelerated mobile? Are there different things you can do to make things faster that are frustrating users? If you have an app, is your app frequently crashing, right? So these are also types of reports and dashboards you should think about beyond just the obvious ones like revenue and the analytics ones like traffic to our site and conversion rate.
And if I can add, the reason we have the types of dashboards is because we have to be very mindful as to why we are creating these dashboards, right? It's very easy to say, well, I have this report, I just want to make it look pretty. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Everyone is drawn to reports that are easy to use and that portray information in a nice and accurate way. But our ability to understand the end user and our ability to understand what they're going to do with this information and what types of decision they need to make with this information really impacts the types of dashboards that we're going to create, and that impacts the outline of the information, the amount of information, and the everyday use.
Absolutely.
And I really liked this quote that I recently discovered from a person at Walgreens, and as you can see, like data governance standards and policies, data visualization should also have a set of standards for design, development, and storytelling. And I would almost say that that creation of standards can help you create the certain templates. It can help you put together a dashboard design process. What are the steps that we need to take to put together a dashboard? Yes, when you're an analyst and you do this on daily basis, it's easy to say, well, I don't need a how-to. I live this on daily basis. But when other people, when you hire, when other people are joining your team, it's easier to give them, here's a 5 or 6 step process that we within our organization tend to follow when we create dashboards. We start with why. We think about personas. We determine the type of dashboard this is. And then this is how we build it out. And this just makes their life easier. And this type of standardization allows the company to focus more on insights, right? This is where the time should be spent on analysis and insights instead of spending way too much time on determining what type of picture, what type of chart to use. So next, we wanted to talk about integration of data sources. And as I mentioned, the world gets continuously more complex. There are more platforms that every organization is utilizing. One of the interesting exercises that we often do is analytics value chain mapping. And what it is ability to draw the chain or the flow of data within your organization, right? So somebody comes to the website. How is that information being recorded? Where does that information travel? How does that information start to join in with your CRM data? How does that information start to join in with your point of sale data? Or if you have a catalog, how does that information integrate with your catalog sales data? You might have A/B optimization platforms, right? In the case of Google Suite, Google Optimize 360 and Google Analytics 360 integrate easily together. But when you use a different platforms, for example, when you use Optimize, then use Adobe, how does the data flow between those two platforms? And so the question becomes, what is the overall picture of not just technologies, but the flow of data within my organization? And this type of flow can help you pinpoint what processes within this flow are manual, right? Or what processes are imperfect. Across what processes we feel like the data quality starts to drop. And then those are the areas that become easy for us to fix and then take advantage of. So this is more or less a traditional picture of technologies within the organization. So on the left side, we have different marketing channels, or we can say acquisition, right? We do display marketing, we do mobile, video, search, email, social, whatever it is. And then in the middle, we have our Google Analytics. We have underneath, we have BigQuery that collects information often from GA, and then we have Google Tag Manager. And ideally, Google Analytics or any analytics technology, all the pixels will be deployed through a tag management system. And then on the right side, we have other user data sets where we have CRM, where we have your data warehouse, where we have ERP, point of sale system. And Each system by itself can add a lot of value to your organization. However, the beauty is when all of these platforms begin working together. For example, when you can pull CRM data from your database, pull it into Google Analytics, and then use that CRM data for your remarketing purposes. And here is just a very, very easy example of data integration when we are talking about comparing different marketing channels. So in Google Analytics, there is an automated integration with AdWords, and we are accustomed to seeing cost of keywords, how much money we are spending on different campaigns, and we can see ROI. However, that's just for AdWords. What about all other marketing channels that you're using? And here's a very easy integration exercise where we bring all marketing channels and we upload their cost into Google Analytics, and now we can see Google, we can see Google, Facebook, Bing, we can see sessions, impressions, clicks, cost, click-through rate, cost per click, return per click, and ROI on a channel-by-channel basis. And immediately information starts to become even more actionable because all of it is on one page. And now you can apply hundreds of segments that are available within Google Analytics to slice and dice this information any way you want to figure out, well, is this the case in every country that we sell? Is this the case in every state? Is this the case on mobile versus desktop? And now those questions become to get very, very interesting. The other question that we often get is, well, what about uploading our backend or uploading our CRM data into Google Analytics, right? Because Google Analytics automatically will only collect data on your website. But what happens if, let's say, you do not have an e-commerce website and somebody comes to your website, they fill out the form, and then actual transaction happens offline, maybe B2B world. So how can that work? So here's an example where we look at Salesforce. And what we can do is we can take fields inside Salesforce about your lead or about the contact that filled out the form on your website, and then we can begin uploading this data into Google Analytics. And here's an example where inside Google Analytics, we can start seeing data by department, or we can upload sales calls, or we can even upload direct mailers, right? So when someone comes to the website, they fill out the form, and now you begin contacting those people, you begin calling them, or you send down direct mailers, or even when you sell them and that transaction again takes place offline, all of that information can be uploaded into Google Analytics. Or, as we mentioned previously, you can do remarketing based on the type of customer that you have, even if that data is only available inside your CRM. As I discussed, you can put it into Google Analytics. So not a very complex process or methodology, right? Definitely something that's quite doable. Yeah. But again, having all this information in one system will allow you to spend less time on data integration and will allow you to spend more time on actual analysis. So here we have an example of importing marketing and offline data into Google Analytics. Again, another report from GA. And here we can see affiliation not offline, or we can see affiliation equals affiliation equals offline, or affiliation not offline or online. And so what we are looking at is we have different marketing campaigns. So we can see non-brand search campaign. And we can see that obviously affiliate equals offline means that there are no sessions. Right? So because there are no sessions, because it happens offline, it shows 0. But then on the further right side, we can see that although it does not have sessions, it still has sales. And we can see that a big number of sales take place offline. But that being said, they originate as the result of somebody clicking on an ad online. So somebody comes to the website, they fill out the form, then a sales rep calls them, the purchase is completed, and then this information is being uploaded into Google Analytics. And we have actually a question from Ted. How does uploading offline data become managed when a large percentage of transactions happen offline? Well, that, as you can see in this example, large number of transactions is being uploaded. And the way often to manage this one is, and as you can see, there will be some sessions that are zero, which can impact your data, is maybe building out different views inside Google Analytics or building out different segments. So you have one view that has this information, maybe one that does not, so you can better understand how this impacts overall your website performance. Obviously, there are some more or less technical caveats, and we actually have a webinar recording when we did a webinar just on online and offline data integration, where we spent a little bit more time talking about some of these caveats and technical details of the implementation. So I'd be happy to send that information. Adam, anything to add maybe to answer this question?
No, you covered it really well. We'll get to some education in just a minute in the next section, but these slides are awesome. Thanks, Michael.
And here's another example of data integration, actually a case study that was written by Google about our work with one of our clients. And the client is an auction house, and they conduct auctions online, but they also conduct auctions offline. And we were able, all the auctions that were conducted online in a third-party system, as well as offline in live auction environment, were being imported into Google Analytics to better understand what marketing channels are driving not just sign-ups for each auction, but are driving people that end up placing high-value bids and winning products, because those are the people that you ultimately want to target and market your upcoming auction houses. And as you can see, the results that were reported by the client in the 60 days immediately following the implementation, they saw almost 40% increase in online bids, 160% increase in conversions, and 185% increase in bid value. So people were actually bidding more. So now, once we go through the process of having more accurate data and more complete data, let's talk a little bit about making the analysis more efficient.
Yeah, so you know, the third important trend that we see for 2017 is, of course, we talked a little bit about how teams are getting smarter bit by bit. And one thing that teams start to do once they're capturing data efficiently and they're sending reports efficiently, you know, what the next level of sophistication is really, and our highest value as analysts and marketers, is interpreting the data for our teams. So enterprises in this regard need to shift from data-centric to change-centric. We need to you know, think about what areas in the business need to be changed or require attention. How do we improve a problem area and guide change there? And what decisions do we need to make to create a change? And really, our analytics should be driving all of this. We should be data-driven organizations, not organizations who, you know, a hippo, because of the way he feels. A hippo, by the way, is the highest paid person's opinion. And so obviously data and analytics should be driving these things, not some person's gut feel. We need to help move our clients and our businesses away from this. And so how do we do this? You know, really step one is to begin with a measurement plan. What we don't want to do is just dive in and say, okay, you know, start running A/B tests for a certain product page on our e-commerce site. We don't want to decide, okay, we're just going to start using Pinterest or Snapchat as an additional tactic in our social media strategy. You know, we need a plan, right? And the first part of any plan is determining our objectives. Outcomes and objectives are business objectives. They're not bring more traffic to the website. They're you know, generate revenue from our website or our product pages. They're increase qualified sales leads for our B2B team, if that's what our marketing team is tasked with, right? What are people looking to us to accomplish? And our objectives are never something like increase Twitter followers. So if your company is pushing you to increase Twitter followers, you want to push back on them and say, well, why? What are we trying to get from these followers? The next thing is defining our business strategy. You all know that. The next thing is identifying key stakeholders. So I talked about this a little bit. When we have our measurement plan, who are we reporting into? So, whether it's VP sales, our CMO, our product team, identify these people, have them as part of our plan, and share, outline, sketch out what tactics and what reports are going to roll up to these people, and you're not giving them anything they don't want. We talked about this a little bit in the data visualization section. Categorizing your channels, this is very important. We've kind of done this for you in Google Analytics. For example, speaking of social, we now have a social segment already built out for you in Analytics. And this is important because we want to see how our specific tactics are working individually. And then, of course, using tools like attribution and using tools like multi-channel funnels, we want to see then how they work together, but they need to be categorized for us to see that. And Google Analytics hopefully does a good job out of the box with this. You can also use things like content groupings to be able to put content on your site into different groups. And once you've done all this, you're just making your life easier of conducting all the analysis to get the great results that Michael was just sharing in his case study. And then under that is now we get into setting KPIs. What are the specific metrics that are going to roll up to more objectives? Obviously here, maybe we are concerned with our community size. We are concerned with traffic because without feeding the top of the funnel, we'll never get to the bottom of the funnel and never get to our outcomes. One thing I want to talk about in KPIs too is to manage expectations on them. Have some forecasting if you can in your in whatever tools you're using to visualize your data, perhaps have a dotted line where you see these things going. And it's good to do some forecasting, right? And say, okay, well, this month we expect it to be here. We're not there yet. We're 10% below or 5% below this goal. But having that forecasting, having those goals is a good thing because even if we didn't meet them, at least we can go back and iterate and refine and decide where to move budget after. But when we don't have any sort of goals or any sort of forecasting, we don't know what success looks like. And so, try to be a little bit aggressive here. No one likes if you're blowing away goals by 100%. But certainly, have them in here and start to think about where do you want to be.
Adam, when it comes to KPIs, are there certain ones, and again, I know it will depend on objectives and strategy, but maybe are there certain KPIs that you feel are completely overused? So quite often the question that we get is, well, what about our bounce rate, or what about time on site? And those are interesting ones. But are there some that maybe you suggest that people don't pay too much attention to?
I think bounce rate is probably one people obsess over, and certainly, you want to look at it, but I don't think it's necessarily the end-all, be-all KPI. Really, overvaluing any one KPI is probably a bad thing. They're all going to work together in harmony, and so, probably not obsessing over one. It depends on the business and it depends on the company. Some marketers love web traffic. They're obsessed with unique visitors to their website, and perhaps if they focused on, maybe they're obsessed with getting new unique visitors. Perhaps if they're focused maybe on converting the ones you already have a little bit better, the business outcomes are going to be a lot better, and it's not just this one KPI that a CMO loves. So. Just not falling in love with the KPI, fall in love with your objectives and your outcomes. So moving on, since we're talking about efficient analysis, you need to think about and make sure all of your processes internally are really, really good. And so one process internally that all analytics teams and all marketing teams have is a data request process. You likely get requests from the web team, from the product team, from the sales team. They want to see different data outside the scope of what you normally report. And this is great. But what you don't want to have is a fire drill from someone asking for you to make, a certain infographic or visualization on something, and, they need it for a meeting in 5 hours with the board. That's a bad thing. So what you need to do is create a form where people can go And it's very clearly documented all of the things that you would ask. So what data do you need? Is it web data? Is it CRM data? What is the specific data that you need? What format? Do you want it in a CSV document or a Google Sheet? Do you want it visualized? Do you want it in a PowerPoint? Tell us what format you need it in. When do you need it? On your data request form, make sure you say, oh, data requests have a 48-hour turnaround time. Set some expectation. And then, maybe someone's not getting the report they want. They want a recurring request of, they want a poll of new subscribers to your newsletter once a month. They're curious about that. Have that sort of question on there as well. But really the point with me sharing this is basically with all of your processes, think about how you can make them more efficient for your team, and especially all the recurring things like someone asking you for a chart about a certain metric. See how you can solve it from a form perspective, and no fire drills for your team.
Great. And there was, I believe, a TED presentation that talks about asking the power of why. So I think whatever request you get, asking why 2 or 3 or 4 times can immediately improve your ability to give back the information that the client or the person or your manager is ultimately looking for. And one last thing to mention about this section is at this point it's really not enough to secure small analytics wins. I remember in the past, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, companies would say, well, we want to put our toe into this, so we want to just see how this works. Let's start with Google Analytics, or let's start with optimization and see how we progress. I'm all for testing, I'm all for experimentation, but when it comes to analytics, we actually need to have larger wins within the organization. It's the demand, if the budgets continue to increase, there is more demand for results, right? And that's why we have to start thinking holistically, how can we impact overall company marketing? How can we improve the whole organization with the work, with information that we have available to us, instead of focusing just on small wins. So the last topic that we wanted to talk about today is bridging the talent gap. And I found some very interesting numbers. So the first one, as you can see, came from MIT Sloan Management Review, where 40% of respondents said that they have a hard time, difficulty hiring analytical talent. And only 17% of analytically challenged firms say that they have a talent they need. So clearly, organizations are in need for more people. And there are thousands of people that different companies will be looking to hire. So one is, if you're looking for a new job right now, then this is the perfect time. This is definitely the area that you want to be in. But if you're a hiring manager, if you're an executive, and you need to grow the organization, you need to grow the team, hiring will become very complex and very complex over the next few years. So the question might be, well, how do I train people that I have within my organization to do this type of work?
And so getting educated is very important. So in my role as analytics advocate, part of our team's job is to educate our users, not just on Google Analytics, but becoming better digital marketers and digital analysts overall. And so we have a lot of great tools on our own team, but some other things you want to think about is a great career opportunity is to get a data science degree. And so now there's more than 23 universities, including Berkeley, NYC, and Stanford. And this is a great opportunity, especially if you're just starting out in your career, is to get a data science degree. In fact, I know MIT and some other courses have open sourced a lot of these trainings, and so you can now do these things and listen to a lot of smart people for free, even if you don't want to get a degree. I believe heavily in attending marketing and industry events. I just was in Milan speaking at eMetrics Milan and SMXL Milan, and I think this is a great way to learn. Getting to meet other marketers in person, hearing what they're doing is always inspirational. And then there's tons of great analytics books and blogs. Obviously, the InfoTrust blog is one. A colleague of mine, Avinash, has written a great book called Web Analytics 2.0. That's a great one. It's sort of the Bible of web analytics. If you read that one, you'd probably be ahead of most marketers in terms of just analytics sophistication. And really another area, if you could go to the next slide, is our, sorry, slide after this, creating best practices and theory training docs for your team is a really important thing, because when you onboard a new team member, you want them to really be going from the same playbook as the rest of your team. So that's an efficiency, is to create some documents that can help. But our Analytics Academy is really a great place to go just to get smarter with Google Analytics overall. And so Michael was going through a data integration, right? And so in our Analytics Academy, we have great videos showing how the Google Analytics platform works and how you can use it to use all these awesome nifty features. Google Analytics out of the box is really awesome, but for example, the e-commerce reports require you obviously to do some additional setup, and so taking that Analytics Academy courses is a great way to become fluent in these areas, even if you're not using them yet. And if you are using them, they'll just help you get better. So this is something our team works very hard on. I'd encourage you to take them and share them with your team. And one other thing that you can use to become smarter with Google Analytics, and this is something we launched in 2017, is a demo account. So the Google Analytics demo account is a fully functional implementation of Google Analytics using real data from the Google Store. So it's not fake data and fake numbers. This is a real live account. And this is fully featured. It's got e-commerce. It's got all the bells and whistles turned on. It's got real revenue going through it. And so this is a great area for new analysts or existing analysts to try new things. Think of it as a sandbox. If you're going to take the Analytics Academy classes, spin up the demo account too, and just play around. I think one of the things that, Michael asked me this question before, that stops new analysts from becoming better is analysis paralysis, or they're too daunted by a tool. Well, the demo account should help answer that for new analysts, because you can't break it. And so get familiar with it, and don't worry, you're not going to screw anything up at your company. And I think that this is a great way to learn and become smarter with data.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. So we've covered a lot of ground, and for the question from Ted, we are going to share the resources as the result, or after the webinar, we're going to include them in the follow-up. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've discussed today. Please, if you have any other questions, use this opportunity to post them in the questions panel, and this way we can raise them and discuss them. But a couple of things that I found interesting, as Adam was talking, was not just sharing here's what we've accomplished in terms of the KPIs for the year, but also going through the exercise of forecasting, right? Forecasting for next year, and maybe even forecasting a couple of different options, right? Here's our more aggressive forecast, and here's more safe forecast, and here's what impacts one or the other, right? So what are some of the challenges, so things that we have to be mindful when we plan for the KPIs. The other one is managing uncertainty, right? If you're looking for complete certainty, if you're looking for 100% accurate data and knowing exactly what will happen, it's most likely not going to happen, right? Because we live in an imperfect world, and the data that we collect, if you think about it, it's being created by people, right? By customer interactions. And if you think about your own interactions with websites, right? You go to the website, you see the product, and maybe you go to Amazon, you compare the price on Amazon, then maybe you go and you search for coupons, then you decide not to buy anything, then maybe you're in a cab or an Uber, and it again comes to mind that, well, I still need that product. You open your mobile device and you complete the purchase, right? So to perfectly outline the sequence of those events, and being able to see and envision all of this in Google Analytics and say this is exactly how it's going to happen, it's not going to work. So we have to become better at managing uncertainty and saying, look, this is the information that we have right now. The worst thing that we can do is just be indecisive and not apply. We have the information. Here's the experiment or that we're going to structure. Here's what we want to learn, and let's see how it goes. If it doesn't work, great, you failed fast, and now you have enough information to do something else.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned imperfect data. Because you're right, you have to get used to working in a world of imperfect data. And actually, something that I've seen is if you were someone who has their own website or their own blog they have for fun and they've used analytics with that, those people tend to be better digital analysts than someone with a stats background because they're used to working in a world with imperfect data. They understand, they're not looking at it like someone who's doing cohort analysis in a lab. They understand that a lot of it's directional and they don't get frustrated by that, and they're still able to see those important trends in their data. So really, all of us as marketers, we're comfortable in this sort of messy digital world, and I think we're even more poised to become the data leads for our teams than necessarily someone with a stats background. I'm not saying understand statistics isn't important. It very much is. But I also think the mindset and the attitude that you were talking about, Michael, is probably even more important.
And the other item, just to add to that, is I realize that a lot of times, it's no one wants to say, well, I'm not sure in this data, or the question that we often get, how am I supposed to present to my executives when I'm not 100% confident in this information, right? And Adam pointed out you have to manage their expectations, right? Executive might not know why the information or why the data is imperfect by nature, right? So you might have to explain, you might have to give them the more holistic overview, not about your data, but about customers, and show them, well, this is what a typical day in the life of our customer looks like, right? And as you can see, they use different devices. They buy across a multitude of different sites. They do research across hundreds of different sites. There are many things that impact their decision making, and we have visibility only across number of channels. So this is the information that is available to us. Yes, it isn't perfect, but based on this information, these are the decisions that we can make. And I think that managing those expectations will allow you to strive. I believe that's really it in terms of what we had for today. Please, again, if you have any questions, please post them in a channel. And Adam, any other follow-up items or questions, maybe how people can contact you, any upcoming presentations or conferences where you'll be speaking, as I'm sure many people would love to hear more from you after this webinar.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam Singer, and really just follow the at Google Analytics feed. We do a good job promoting where not just myself, but other Google team members will be presenting and sharing our new online courses and our new features. So yeah, Twitter's a great place. The other thing, I'm happy to help any of you with one-off questions. I'm very open. My email is just adamsinger@google.com. If you ever have a simple one-off question or you want to learn more about our product suite, feel free to give me a ping, and I'm happy to direct you to the right person.
Sounds good. And same here. I will send out email follow-ups, and if there's a specific question, just reply, and they'll respond. So I will stay online. There's actually another few questions, which is wonderful. Adam, I think this one is for you. Any future 2018 Plus J updates that we should look forward to?
Well, 2018 is 2 years off, I think. So let's get through 2017 first. But I would say look to us to continue to allow, both free and paid users to have more awesome tools. I think a lot of people thought when we launched our paid product, free users wouldn't get new features. And that's one thing where I think you can expect to see continued improvement in both the free and the paid tools. Obviously, mobile is very important. So in terms of future updates, we want to make sure you're measuring your mobile users. Cross-device and attribution is an area that we're really interested in. We've made the attribution reports available, not just that was a premium feature, now it's available to everyone because we believe it's very important that you attribute your marketing campaigns. Data Studio as well, so being able to visualize not just your Google Analytics data, but all of your data together is very important.
Great. Another question, how will Google Analytics help to meet social analytics demands in 2017?
That's a great question. So, in terms of social as a referrer to your website, social sites bringing you traffic that converts on your site, that's something we do well now. Obviously, you need to campaign tag your social links and have some process around how you're sharing so you can track that really well. In terms of social platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, I would recommend using a tool like Data Studio or Tableau or some visualization tool to bring all of your social metrics together. Really, to measure campaign-based tools, a Hootsuite or a Sprinkler, which both of those tools integrate with Google Analytics, are going to give you the picture of what happens in those platforms. And that's why we have a partner gallery and a technology, all these technology partners, because of course, social being specific silos and Facebook not giving us data as much as I would love to have Facebook data in GA. That's just the way that it's going to work, and the way we scale that is through our technology partners. So, but if there is anything in our social reports that you think we can do better, feel free to give me a ping.
Excellent. And how can Google Analytics help data science efforts in the future, especially in the area of predictive analytics?
Um, yeah, so in terms of predictive analytics, one thing we're already doing right now is in the Google Analytics mobile app, we will surface for you on a given day. You'll get a feed of all of the things that we saw in your data that were different. Um, in terms of predictive analytics, that's a great question. Right now, as an analyst, that's really up to us to do. I think you'd have to watch this space for what happens next. It's a good question though, and it's an area that we're definitely thinking about.
Excellent. Another question is about the webinar being available. Yes, the webinar will be available. We will share the recording. Adam, another question for you. Can you share a bit more about Optimize 360 and A/B testing?
Yeah, so that is a new tool that we just launched, and that's basically our premium testing tool. I don't know if that was a specific question, but hopefully you can get a demo of that by filling out the form on our website. And of course, whether you're using that tool or an Optimizely, definitely have a process with how you A/B test and try new things. That would be a whole other separate webinar to go into A/B testing best practices.
Great. So far, no more questions. Thank you, Adam, so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I hope that you found this valuable. And again, if there are any questions that come up after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to both of us. Have a good weekend, everyone, and happy holidays. Oh, actually, one more question. Would the J visualization be able to be exported in the future?
So would GA visualization be able to be exported in the future? Right now, you can export via a number of ways. PDF export. You can export via CSV via our API. You can export to Google Sheets, to Microsoft Excel if you'd like via a plugin. So hopefully you can export anything you'd like today. And really, the API is quite robust. You can even export multi-channel funnel data via the separate MCF API. So we're very open with our data at Google. I don't know specifically what you're interested in exporting that you can't get out right now, but feel free to send me a ping. But hopefully we make it easy to take your data.
All right. Well, looks like there are no more questions. So with this, we will end this webinar. Again, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michael.